When I'm out teaching one of my seminars, I love to open by asking the group, what is your ultimate goal in professional wrestling? What do you hope to get out of this in the latter stages of your journey? And although the way it is worded is always a little bit different, ultimately, the overwhelming majority of answers that I hear all point to the same destination: being able to earn a living wage in the pro wrestling industry. And in order to do that, there is a line that divides pro wrestling promotions that we need to understand. Luckily, we're talking about exactly that today. I'm Mike Quackenbush. This is Till We Make It. And if you are passionate about professional wrestling and you're never done learning all about it, well, I happen to think you're in a pretty good place. Consider joining our community by subscribing down below. That way you never miss out on a video. In my career, I have been very fortunate to work in front of the cameras as a professional wrestler, commentator, ring announcer, and referee. And I've worked behind the scenes too, as a promoter, booker, producer, agent, coach, consultant, and a bunch of other things too. If ultimately your goal in professional wrestling is to work for an organization that can pay you a living wage so that working within the industry is your sole means of income, then you need to understand the line which divides up the hundreds, if not thousands, of pro wrestling promotions all around the globe. Beneath that line, there are a lot of companies out there which simply do not have the resources to pay a living wage. But there are 7 companies out there which can pay at least a living wage, with a few little exceptions and conditions, which we're going to talk about at the end. So let's talk a little bit of wrestling's global infrastructure. There's some form of professional wrestling on 6 of the 7 continents around the planet. There is nothing going on down in Antarctica that I know of. But if you hear about something going on down there, would you let me know? Because Antarctica is quite elusive. Despite wrestling's nearly global presence in hundreds of countries, there are only 3 countries where there are wrestling promotions centered that could pay you a living wage. And I want to detail exactly those countries and exactly those companies for you, so that you might be able to start setting goals for yourself that will lead you to one of those organizations, should it be your goal to one day work exclusively within the pro wrestling industry. So up first, let's talk about Japan. 2 of the 7 companies we're going to focus on are centered in Japan. So above that line, you're going to find Dragon Gate and New Japan Pro Wrestling. If you worked exclusively for one of those 2 companies, it is very likely that you would earn a living wage, given what the standard of living is in Japan. Beneath the line, every other Japanese wrestling organization you can think of, from All Japan Pro Wrestling to Michinoku Pro. If you were working for one of those organizations exclusively, it is somewhat unlikely that you could earn a living wage. You would need some kind of side hustle, ancillary revenue stream, or part-time employment in order to make ends meet. Shifting focus to the United States of America, there are 3 organizations here which could pay you a living wage in exchange for exclusive work. They include World Wrestling Entertainment, which of course is also the parent brand for NXT, AEW, All Elite Wrestling, or Ring of Honor, owned by the Sinclair Broadcasting Group. If you had an exclusive contract with one of those 3 wrestling organizations, it is very likely they would be paying you a living wage. You would not need any other type of employment to make ends meet. Beneath that line, every other wrestling organization in the United States of America, from Impact Wrestling to MLW to the NWA, so on and so forth. While it is certainly possible you might be able to eke out a living working exclusively for one of those companies, it's far more likely that you too will need part-time employment, an ancillary revenue stream, or some kind of side hustle in order to enable your pro wrestling dreams. And the third and final country we're going to visit on our little tour of wrestling's global infrastructure is Mexico. You will recall I mentioned at the top of this that there are some exceptions or conditions that need to be applied, and we're going to talk about them here. So, for starters, above the line in Mexico, you will find CMLL, the oldest pro wrestling organization on earth, and AAA. And beneath that line, while you might find lots of work with the Crash or IWRG or AULL, it's unlikely that you'll be able to make a living working for them. If you're able to eke out a living working for CMLL or AAA, you will almost certainly have to reside in Mexico, because what these organizations are able to pay would probably not sustain the standard of living if you chose to work in Mexico but reside in the United States, or work in Mexico but reside in Japan. So if you are hoping to earn a living working exclusively for CMLL or working exclusively for AAA, you will almost certainly need to reside in Mexico. Quite a few years back, I happened to be sat in someone else's seminar when I heard them say this to the group. They said that your only goal in professional wrestling should be to work for the WWE. And if it's not, you are just wasting everybody's time. And I want you to know, I disagree with this idea wholeheartedly. There are 7 different companies on earth that could pay you a living wage to perform for them exclusively, and only one of them happens to be the WWE. And even placing that aside, as if all other goals are somehow invalid, I happen to think there is room in professional wrestling for weekend warriors. There is room in professional wrestling for hobbyists. There is room in professional wrestling for people who do not want to work exclusively for one company, and it is entirely possible to also earn a living not working full-time for any of those 7 organizations. It's possible as a freelancer, an independent contractor, someone who is active in the gig economy, to line up enough paying work month to month that you would never be tied into an exclusive arrangement with any person or any company, and yet you could absolutely make a living as a professional wrestler. I want you to know that wrestling exclusively for those organizations which exist below the line, so to speak, is nothing to be ashamed about. I have done so, I have friends and respected peers who have done so, and if you place a high value on flexibility and creative freedom, then you might find that sort of work and that sort of lifestyle to be incredibly satisfying and incredibly fulfilling. I don't think I understood pro wrestling's global infrastructure whatsoever in the first 5 years of my career. And I want to arm you with this knowledge so that you are better able to steer your career in the direction you want it to go, so that you realize your goals are attainable with hard work, and that ultimately you will be able to carve a legacy that you can be proud of. Did you learn something from today's video? Well, please let me know down below in the comments what it is. And I always appreciate your suggestions on topics for future Till We Make It videos. If you want to keep on learning, well, direct yourself right over here. This is a hand-picked video that the YouTubians thought you would love a lot. YouTubians, of course, being the denizens of Utopia.